Have you ever wondered why so many of us feel inadequate or not enough? There is a lot to unpack, but it comes down to two specific points: judgment and tribal acceptance. Often, the challenge that we face is when it comes to feeling as if we are enough, is how we end up navigating judgment and acceptance. First, it's important to note that judgment always boils down to someone else's preferences, which are then projected onto us. It's not ours, and it doesn't have to be ours. Our brains develop and learn by cataloging and referencing past experiences. As children, we tend to seek safety from our loved ones, peers, and other members of our tribe. That means that we learn to shape and compare ourselves based off of their ideals, values, and expectations. As we move into adulthood, we tend to carry those same ideals, expectations, and judgments, which end up holding us back from realizing and accepting our own truth. We continue this path forward, trying to meet someone else's standards without ever stopping to figure out what our own are. And in doing so, we keep whittling ourselves down and down in hopes of fitting in. So I'm curious, with that being said, how would you change your standards, and how can you release judgment and accept yourself as you are? And what would that look like? How has this impacted you? When we are trying to fit in, we end up reducing ourselves down to an impossible level. To illustrate this, I want you to imagine your soul, you in your total wholeness, as you're created as a ball or a sphere. Now, if you were to imagine a tribally accepted version of you, you would see a 2D square. For your sphere to model that tribally accepted version of you, you would have to scrape down and shave down a whole lot of yourself in order to try to fit that mold. And when we do that, it is really painful and uncomfortable. And we do this over and over again, making ourselves smaller and smaller. So that being said, it's no wonder that by the time we finally try to fit into this mold, we feel inadequate or not whole. Because to some degree, we have shaved away massive chunks of ourselves, all in the name of fitting into this tiny little square. After all that work to make yourselves into this 2D square, you're left feeling this huge void and sense of not enoughness because you are missing so much of yourself. For you to fill in that void, you would need your whole sphere, not a tiny sliver of it. That's not enough. That's why it's important for us to find places where we can be our whole self and avoid trying to fit into the shape of who we are supposed to be or what society expects of us. So I want you to really think about that whenever you're interacting with other people and ask yourself, am I able to show up as my whole self? Or do I feel like I have to reduce myself to this tiny little sliver that just isn't me? I also wanted to point out the fact that if you have already been here as the square for a while, you've likely noticed that void that I was talking about from missing so much of yourself. And what happens is usually we will try to collect more squares as distractions in our external environment, whether it's activities or it's entertainment or it's substances or it's even other people. Sometimes it's drama. But here's the thing. No matter how many of those 2D surface level external things that you try to stack together, you're only going to ever get a cube. You're still going to be missing parts of your whole sphere. So you're still going to be left with some type of void within yourself. You can't win that way. You might have to really look at why you are resisting showing up as your whole self and start addressing those judgments. It might be time to start reclaiming your whole self and showing up that way and become the sphere and not the square. So that's what I want you to take away from this when it comes to belonging and fitting in. By now you've come to realize just how much you have tried to reshape yourself, and that by doing so, you leave yourself incomplete and have a lot of yourself missing. So what can you do about it? First of all, pay attention to the judgments that others place on you and the judgments that you place on others. And the judgments that you worry about being placed on you too. Those are the wonderful places to start looking for those old lost pieces of yourself. 2, when you find those judgments and preferences, ask yourself who it belongs to and if it feels true within your soul. 3, notice the traits and qualities that you admire in others and look within to see if those traits are within you as well or used to be. Chances are that they are. The next one is if you cut out a part of yourself due to judgment, there's a good chance that you will be appalled when you see that aspect of yourself being expressed by another person. It will probably sound something like, they shouldn't do that. So really look deeply within yourself when you catch yourself doing that. And then start practicing noticing when these types of responses come up and begin to question them and reflect on them. Over time, you'll begin to find those old lost parts and pieces and begin to work on accepting and reintegrating them so that you can show up as your whole self for once and for all. When you begin to show up as your whole self, restoring yourself to your original form, you're going to notice more of other people who are doing the same and have an opportunity to find a new tribe of others who are also whole and complete. However, just because someone else is a sphere does not always make them part of your tribe. Think of a Venn diagram where the 2 circles overlap. Sometimes you will find that other people's circles overlap more than others do. So find the ones that do overlap a lot and start creating your own tight-knit tribe that allows you to feel accepted as you are created and does not demand that you reduce yourself to fitting in. As you do, you're going to notice life becomes a whole lot more fun and pleasant, I promise. Now you're presented with a choice, whether you're going to keep whittling away parts of yourself or you're going to begin putting in that deep soul work to reclaim those lost pieces of yourself and bring yourself back into wholeness and finally recognize that you were always enough. The choice is yours. Repairing the damage can be very long and a slow process, but it is easier and faster if you have the right support. So I invite you to schedule a call with me today. Over 6 months, we can take you absolutely leaps forward. And during that time, you'll learn the skills to integrate all of those lost pieces and release all of the pain, the beliefs, the judgments that you held on to from those experiences and navigate life from a state of wholeness, knowing how to hold your boundaries and never, ever allow others to convince you to reduce yourself to less than who you are again. The link is in my bio. If you're interested, set up a call and let's get started.